Hello everyone, welcome to Colombo JavaScript Meetup. And we are going to after some break, we are back with October edition. So this is going to be episode 1, hopefully. So this time we are getting an talk about Angular state management and into the Angular world. I think previous meetups had about Svelte and React and more towards that area. So this time we are happy to get Angular also on board. So this when I post about what to have, what the topics to have in next meetup, Rajika, one of our previous speaker and a member from one of the JavaScript meetup, got contact me and said that there's two guys who like to talk about Angular state management. So we are going to get these two guys to work together and explain the things with Angular state management with Akita. So I'm going to introduce both of them to the stage, and I think Rishanthakumar will be starting the session. We call him Rishi. So both of them are senior software engineers from 99X. So it is not now 99XT or 99X technology, it's 99X now. So I like the rebranding now, so it's more easy to talk around. So I'm going to welcome Rishanthakumar or Rishi to start the session.
Yeah, Chatu, I think Dishan will be starting the session. Yeah, Dishan.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to welcome Dishan Rajapaksha, the senior software engineer from 99X to start the session.
Thanks, Chatu. So as Chatu mentioned, we'll be talking about Angular state management with Akita today. And I'm Dishan and my colleague is Rishanthakumar, as Chatu mentioned, and we both work as senior software engineers at 99X. And you can contact us using any of these methods if you have any questions regarding the session. We'll be happy to help. So today's agenda would be, first we are going to talk about Angular state management, and then we'll see how to implement Angular state management with Akita. And then we'll have a small demonstration to see how we can develop using Angular with Akita, and then a small Q&A session. So before talking about Angular state management, let's see what an application state is. So you can simply say that all the state variables or the application's memory is an application state. So it can be data from the APIs or the state of the presentation UI. So our UIs might have filters and we'll need to store the current filter status, or else it can be local user preferences, like whether user is using the dark mode or the light mode. So all these variables amount to an application state. So in the Angular application context, so since Angular has multiple components and each component has its own state, Angular application state is a bit more complex than a regular application. So what if we need to communicate between all these components? What are the methods available? So the first one would be property binding. So let's say you have a component one, and then we are passing a list of to-dos to that. And then we have a presentation component, and maybe in a for loop, we are passing each to-do to that component 3. So that is property binding. We are passing the values down to the child components. And if we want to pass data from a child component to a parent component, we can use event binding, which is at output. So like in here, in a child component, you can have a method called onCheck, and using an event emitter in component 1, you can get that method once it is triggered. So in parent child component scenarios, we can use at input and at output. But what if the components are not related? So in that case, we can use a service. So for example, we can have a small service called data service and a behavior subject called message source. And then we'll have an observable called current message. And in a small function called change message, we are getting a parameter called message, and we'll be updating the current message observable in that. So we can inject that service into a component. Maybe in component 1, it is calling the change message method, hello from sibling or something like that. And in a component 2, we have subscribed to that current message observable, and there we can get the change message parameter. So in this way, we can communicate between components that are not related. So in all these ways, we can communicate, but imagine that our application has multiple components. So some enterprise applications can have hundreds of components. Some can be containers, some can be presentation components. So using the methods we mentioned earlier at input, at output, and the services, it will be harder to manage our data using the methods we mentioned. So some components will be calling each other, and we might need to pass data between components that are unrelated. And obviously, it will make things harder to track. So we won't be able to track changes the way we want, and we might not know who's changing what in where, in which component, and these variables will be mutable. So that makes things especially harder because we don't know who changed the value. So to all these problems, we need to find a solution. And that solution is having all our applications memory in a state. So that is called state management. So in this example, you have component 1, 2, 3, 4, and all these components will be communicating with a single state. So it can be the single source of truth for all the application data. So since we have all the applications data in a single place, we'll be able to track the changes easily, and of course it will make things easier to debug. We'll know who's changing what, where, all the information we need. So in that case, we need to find a library to manage our state. So that is why we chose Akita, but there are multiple state management libraries in Angular, NGRX, NGXS, and so on and so forth. But some of these libraries might have a higher learning curve. So you might need to learn a lot. You might need lots of files to implement them. And some might have lots of boilerplate code. And some libraries might be verbose. So you need to write a lot of code to implement even the simplest of things. So because of these problems, we chose Akita because it encourages simplicity. So in an Akita application, you need a small number of files to implement the whole state, and it is very much beginner friendly. And it has built-in enhancers. That means in some of the other libraries we talked about, uh, you'll need to add another library to manage the local storage, or you'll need to add another library manage WebSockets using that. So, but Akita has some of these things inbuilt. So it makes things easier for us developers. And it has a fast growing community. And that is one of the best things about open source, because it's always evolving. And it is based on object-oriented design principles. So some developers might take it easy because they might not be familiar with functional programming concepts. So these are some of the few reasons why we chose Akita to implement. So if we talk about Akita's life cycle, we have a store. So store is going to be our state, and we're going to be storing all our variables and all our data. And then we have queries. Like the name suggests, we are using query files to get the data from the stores, and components can access them. And then we have a service. So the service is going to mutate the store. So when we are going to update any store values, we are going through a service. And we can also connect our backend APIs to the service, and it will make things easier since we don't have to use a separate data service or HTTP service. You can do both things at once using a service. And another good thing about Akita is it enables us to use command query separation. So what command query separation is, it suggests us to use separate methods to command to perform an action or to query the data. So we are using a single action to query, and then we can use a separate action to get the data. So those are separate. We are not going to do both at once. So when you are talking about Akita concepts, the first one is a store. So Akita store is a single object and it has several store operations. You can use update method to update the store values. So in this code snippet, you can see we can create a small interface core interface and create a initial state. And here I'm just setting the username property to an empty string. And then we can extend the Akita store and create our state. So this is it. This is all you need to create an Akita store. So once you have a store, you need a service to update those state variables. So how you can do that is, so like I told you, there are store methods to update. So in a service, we can just inject our store and call the store method update method. So here I am passing just username and this will update the store method. And then, like I told you earlier, we can even do async updates in our services. So usually what we do is we are just having a data service and get the data service response, and we can pass it to a separate method to update the service. But in here, what I'm doing is I'm just calling the API and then tap it and update the store then and there. So we don't need a separate service to do our HTTP calls. So this makes things a bit easier for us. And once we update the data in our store, we can query them. So how we can query is we can extend the Akita query class and create a new class called auth query or your state name query. And we can just use the select and get methods. So if you need an observable to get the changes to your component, you can select the state variable as an observable. Or else if you need the raw value, you can get the raw value itself, which is easy. And you can see that there are select loading and select error methods here. So what these methods are, so Akita has inbuilt a loader property and an error property. So when we can update those, we can subscribe to them in an application level, and you can set the application error, so application loading status in Akita. So it will be easier for us to manage all those things in a single place. You can just have a notification component and subscribe to the error method or something like that. You don't have to do things, implement things manually. And one of the special use cases in Akita store is you can create an entity store. So an entity store is a collection of entities. So you can think of this as a maybe a SQL table in your database. So what it does it makes things easier for us to use CRUD operations. So when you have a collection of entities, you can call these inbuilt methods add, remove, update. So you won't have to write them manually in your application. So like creating a normal store, you can extend an entity store class here, not the store class, and provide your property name, property class. So here I'm classing the to do. And in these inbuilt methods, you can just call to do service. So if you can see in here in the to do service, I haven't written anything. No add method, no update method. These are all inbuilt. So I just need these few lines and I can manage my entity store easily. To do service.add and I can pass the variables And if I want to remove, I can just pass the entity ID. So these things makes some of our development pretty easy. And like in a normal store, we have an entity query. So using an entity query, you can do some SQL-like queries. For example, you can select all from an entity state and you can subscribe to that, or else you can also filter your state using the select all. So in here, I'm filtering all the completed to-dos. So you don't have to have separate methods to do the things. And if you want the values, not the observables, you can create use the get methods. So in to-do query.getAll, I'll get the raw values for the entity state. And you can get a single entity from get entity, or you can even check whether an entity is there in the state using has entity method. So all these things, so this is one of the good things I like about Akita. And what we can also, so imagine that you have separate stores. You have an actors store and a genres store. You can combine those store queries into a single operation. So for example, here I'm passing actors and genres queries here. And after selecting all, I can map those two to create a single object. So you don't have to write separate methods to do all these things. You can just do it using a single method. So these are some of the Akita inbuilt functionalities. So using store, query, and service, you can implement the whole Akita state management system. So if we talk about some features in Akita, there are few features I picked to talk today. So one feature is transactions. So imagine that you have an auth state and you are querying the whole auth state and you have an observable for that. And in another method, I'm updating the token and I'm setting the loader to false. Usually what will happen is this will trigger two times when we update, because we are updating it twice, and the auth state observable will get triggered twice. But if we add the transaction decorator to that, Akita will make sure that Akita will handle this at a single update operation and our observable will get only triggered once. You can also use with transaction to do the same thing. So this will make sure our observables are not getting called in any other way we don't want. And you can also manage local storage with Akita. So using a simple function called persist state, you can pass your store name and whether you want to use the session storage or the local storage, you can persist your store. Like this, you can also pass specific store values. For example, I'm passing auth.username and local storage. So this will make sure our application's local storage will have our auth.username property the next time you come into the application. So like I said earlier, to do some of these things, other libraries might need to add a separate plugins or things like that. But luckily, Akita has all this inbuilt. And there's another feature called store middleware. So we can have hooks. So if we want to do some changes to our entities before updating or before adding or before removing, you can create a hook and do all your changes before or after your operations. And it also has a WebSocket support and state history and state dirty check. So dirty check will allow you to see whether the store has been changed or not since its initialization. And these are some of the Akita features. You will be able to see a lot more if you consult the documentation. And since we are using Akita with Angular, there are some Angular specific features in Akita as well. So one feature is Angular schematics. So in there, you can, once you install the Akita to Angular application, you can do ng generate Akita feature and create a Akita state for your application. So this command will make sure that your application has a model, query, service, and a store. All these things will be generated from the above method. And if you want to generate those one by one, you can use Akita AS or Akita AES to generate store or an entity store, or else you can use query or an entity query to generate a query file. And likewise, you can use Akita service to generate a specific service for your application. So this will make sure things are a little bit easier for you. So Akita is all about making things easy for us developers. And we also have a feature called ng entity service in Angular. So if you have have an API that respects HTTP verbs like get, put, post, we can give our base URL here in the module. And once we extend the entity service, and when you call the to-do service.get or add, the Akita will make sure that all these are added to your API as well. It will call the API automatically and the API will persist them. So you don't have to write the HTTP calls manually. So, and another feature is local component state. So you can have multiple specific component. No, you can have a specific store for your component. So if you have 10 components, you can have 10 states if you need. And you can even combine them. Like you combine the queries, you can combine the states and query them. And Akita has features to manage your Angular forms, Angular outer states, and everything. So do make sure that you go and check out the documentation. There are lots more features than this. And next, it's time for a small demonstration. My colleague Rishanthakumar will show you how to implement a small Akita application from the scratch. Over to you,
Yes,
Rishan.
yes, thank you, Dishan. Let me share my screen. I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, Rishi, you
Yes,
can go.
Rishi, we can see.
Yeah. So so we'll be doing a demo on simple to-do app. So this is that app which is written in Angular. So if I go inside, it's just the UI only I have done, not integrated the state still. So I will walk you through how to integrate Akita from scratch. So as mentioned, documentation is where you can find all things. So I will be using this commands where you can see these Angular schematics, which Akita provides support for this Angular CLI. You can simply copy this command in order to add to your project. So if you see, I just entered that command already since it took some time. So it prompts for some question. For first one is set up Akita Dev Tools, yes, so that I can see the state in that Chrome extension. And then Akita Router Store, I won't be using Router Store for this demo. And Akita's HTTP entity service, if time permits, we'll be doing a demo in that as well. So that also I will put yes. And Firebase entity service, no. So that's it. It will generate, like it will add the relevant dependencies, that is Akita and the ng DevTools and the ng entity service for this HTTP. While it is installing the dependencies, I will just go through my application project structure. So basically, I have two features in this app. One is auth and to-dos. where auth, I just have the login component in order to log in. And also in the to-dos, I just have these to-dos listed where I can perform the CRUD operations. So that's it. So you can remember Dishan mentioned about in Akita, there are two types of store. One is normal store and the other one is entity store. So in this case, for auth, I will be using a normal store, and for to-dos, since it's a collection of entities, I will be using the entity store. So for that, I will be using the commands with the support of these schematics. So in order to create a normal store inside this auth feature, so normally Akita recommends to create a state folder inside the feature module. So here I will put ngg feature. Sorry, it's not right. Okay. Feature inside the auth module. I will be having the auth state. So that's it. Yeah, so it will prompt for me for questions, what type of service you want to use. So I will be using the default for now. Okay, that's it. So it will create the, sorry, I think I missed something here. So I just created the entity store. What I need to create is normal store. I will just delete this thing. Okay, so the same command, you need to make sure that you give plain as an option in order to make sure that the normal store is generated. So here also default, yeah. So that's it. So if I go to the folder now, so as explained, you can see my query class here and the service class where I used to mutate the store, and then the auth store service class. And okay, so in here you can see the auth store with just key. In this demo, what I will do is I will just try to store my username in this state. So we'll rename this as username, and we'll set the initial state as empty. So that's it from the store. So in the service, we normally do the update. So for normal stores, like normal service, we need to write the method in order to update it. So I will just have the method name update username, where I will get the username as string. Then here, I will just call the auth store dot update, and I will pass this username like this as an object. So since I don't need this, I will remove this. Yeah, so that's where I'm going to update the username in the auth service, which is related to the state. And in the query, I will be querying the store. So you can see, as Dishan explained earlier, we can have two ways of query. Either you can select the username where it will give you observable. So first one, I will just select it from the state. So yeah, so this is how select the username. And if you need to get the row value, get username. I need to make sure that I return this here also. Okay, so those are the two methods I will be writing for this. Anyway, I will be using the select username method only query in order to query the state. So that's it. When login, if I go to the login component, you saw that I submitted a username when it's in the login page. So what I am going to do is I am going to update this username in the state. So in order to do that, I need to get the service class. So in order to update the store, private auth service. Okay, so here auth service dot update username. Here I will just pass this value to the store. So that's it with the updating part, and then also in the to-dos page, I will be querying this username to show in the header. So if I go to the to-dos component.html, you can see this here. So what I will do is I will replace this thing, the username, by getting the username from the state. So in order to do that, here private, I need to use the auth query in order to query the store. Okay, and I will just replace this with this dot auth query. So there is an inbuilt method. Not in this. So here I just wrote that method to select the username. So that's it. If we go to the app and see now, I think since we added some dependencies, we need to build the app again. So I will build it again. So while it's being built, I will just go through this documentation. So here you have all these commands and all in order to use this schematics when you are generating these boilerplates. So this is for that entity service, and which I used was first one is the plain normal service. Then also you can also like I just created all store query and the service in one command. You can also create it one by one separately. Seems like it is getting some time to build. Yeah, we'll wait. Then for the generate query part also, you can have it separately, and like that you can have all these things separately. We'll wait for a couple of minutes. Yes. Okay. So now here I will just type my name and go here. You can see my name is shown here, and also if I go to the dev tools here and go to the state, you can see my this auth normal state is there. Yeah, so that's it. So another scenario I'm going to do is, let's say when you log out, you need to reset the state to the initial value. So again, there is a method, inbuilt method with Akita. So what I will be doing is in this auth service class, I will just write another method reset, and this dot auth store dot reset. Then what I will do is I will call this method in the logout method. So here is I am calling this dot. Yeah, I need to inject the auth service as well. I just only injected the auth query. Okay. Then here, auth service dot reset. So one other thing we need to make sure that in order to work this resetting function in the auth store, you need to make sure that you configure this store with this setting resetable true. Yeah. So I think that's it. So if I go to the app now, we'll check the state. Yeah, it's empty string. Okay. Now if we check the state, it's Rishi. So what I will do is I will log out. And now again, I will check the state. You can see my state is like it's reset to the initial value. So that's one of the feature given by Akita. So yeah, that's about the normal store, what I will be doing. And I told you I will be doing about this entity store as well. For this to-dos feature, I will be generating a entity store, which is where ngg feature, and then the feature module and the state to. So that's it. Yeah, again, it will ask for this question. I will be choosing the default one. Okay, now if here I will, if I go here, so you can see the model, query, service, and store. I already had this to-do model in my component. What I will do is I will just copy this and delete these models, and I will be using the state to do straight away. So okay, so here I will just paste whatever I copied, and also I will be having this method to create a to do using the GUID. So this GUID function is again from Akita, and then I am just spreading the input. Okay, so since I just deleted that state, I need to do these changes here. Okay, and also in the to-do component. Okay, that's it. So if we go to these files and check, yeah, in this query, we'll be having the query here. I won't be doing any change. And this is the store and the service where to mute it. So here I will be doing some changes. This get one, I won't be calling an API. So I will be deleting this. Then here in the I will be doing some changes to this method where I will get the title string, and inside this I will just create a to do using the create to do function. I just use it. So here I will just pass the title. Yeah, so that's it. I'll just remove this as well. So other methods will remain as it is. In order to update, you need to provide the ID and the to do, and remove it's just the ID since this is an entity store. And if I go to the to-dos component, you can see that I have already have this to-dos observable, and I am iterating that in order to show the to-dos. So what I will do is here, in order to query this store and show the to-dos for this to-do to-do observable, but I will first I need to query the entity source, so I need to inject the to-do query. Okay, then this dot to do query dot. There is a inbuilt method to select all the entities in that store, so I will be using that. So that's it. in order to query. So also I just need to update the state as well. So we'll make sure that inject the to-do service as well in order to update the store. Okay, so here you can see in the add, I'm just getting the input from the form. So what I will do is inside this dot to-do service dot update. I will just pass this title only. I think
it should be add.
sorry. Yeah, I just forget that. Sorry. Yeah, it should be add. So you need to just pass this. Yeah, so that's it. So if I go inside now, okay, and we'll just check the state. Okay, you can see my to-do store is also there. So what I will do is now I will just add a test to do. Okay, yes, so it got updated as well. So if I go to the state and see here, yes, the entity is added. So the same way now, so until now, so far I have queried the store and I just use this add method. So next what I will be doing is the update and the delete. So if I come here, yeah, in this on complete, I will be updating the store. So what I will do is this dot to do service dot update, where I will be passing the ID and the entity. Yeah, so that's it. Now if I go here and just update it, you can see the update entity also working fine. The next thing is to delete that. So here the same service, so we are using the service to update the store, remove or add items. So here I will just call the remove one and I will just pass the ID. Okay, that's it. Again I will go sorry. I check the state, you can see I just added and removed all the things are there. So I think I just covered the basic CRUD operation. So next thing, there is another cool feature called that ng HTTP service, where Dishan also mentioned, like if you have an API for this to do CRUD operation, which complies with the RESTful naming convention, we can just configure that API to Akita. So Akita will make sure that whenever you do action here, it will do the relevant calls to the API and do the changes, and also you get the responses well. So in order to use that feature, we can't use this normal service. So this is just a normal service to update the store. So there is another separate service for that ng HTTP service. I will be deleting this file and inside this folder there is another command to generate this, that is ngg-ahes HTTP entity service, and I will be giving the name as to do. So that's it. Yeah. So if I go to the to do service now, yes, it created the service. So here I won't be doing any changes, and also in the query or model, the to-dos component HTML, what I will do is I need to do some changes here. So this to-do selecting and all that will work as it is. So in order to get all data from the API, we need to make sure that in that ng entity service there is a method called get to get the all data from the API. It will make sure that the all data is fetched from the API and it's updated to the store. So in order to get that, to do service get, and also you need to subscribe it. Okay, so also you need to make sure that you call this get all before querying it. Okay, so add the same method we need to do is but we need to subscribe it since an async call is sent to the API under the hood. So inside this, what I am doing is I am just resetting the form. Okay, then the complete also again the same thing, just need to subscribe it. And in the remove one, there is another method called delete. You just need to make sure that you call that method. I think that's it. Yeah. Another one thing you need to do is you need to configure this API. So I wrote a simple .NET Core API and hosted in the clouds, which will be using for this, which complies with the standards, RESTful naming standards. So it's in the environment file, API URL. So we can see it's just a simple API. So that's it. If I now go to the app, yeah, you can see already one to do is shown here. So that's from the API, I guess. I have already added that. So if I show you the network tab and the action side by side. So let's say I am adding a to do. Okay, seems like okay. I think I might need to do some changes here. The to-dos component, you can't just send the title. So that the earlier method I used, I am generating the ID, but in this you need to make sure that you just send the title object, to-do object, and the ID will be generated by the API. So that's the mistake I am doing there. Okay, again, I show you side by side. Okay, you can see success method is sent and the to-do is updated successfully. And if I update this again, for that also an update method sent, and for delete also a method is sent. And also you can check the state as well. So state is also automatically being updated by the Akita. So I think that's about the HTTP entity service where you can integrate your API. The next thing I will be doing is you can see my name is got disappeared because I refresh. It is not stored in the session storage or local storage. So what I will be doing is I am going to store my username in the session storage. So in order to do that, there is a simple configuration you need to do. If you go to the main.ts here, as you can remember, Dishan explain about this method persisted, where you can just give the values like this include. So here it's an array. You can provide the stores which you are going to store in the session storage. So for now, you can either give this whole store or just a property in that store. I will be saving the username only. Then also there is an option to give the storage. So that is session storage. Yes. So that's it. I now go to the app. Okay, you can see my name. I will just refresh it. My name is still there. If I inspect and go to the application and see the session storage, my value is stored there. So that's how you just integrate this session or local storage with this store. The next thing, we are using this Chrome DevTools. So in order to use that, we need to do a small configuration in this app. So if you see here in the app module.ts, Akita ng DevTools for root. So this is what I am doing in order to get that values in that Chrome extension. So here I can provide some options also. There is this one option to trace the action, log trace. If I give true here, so, and save it, we'll just go to the app. But you can see the trace is logged into the console log. So I will just clear this and I will just add one. Okay, so now you can see one to do is added, and also by debugging this thing, you can see where like it got invoked. If you can see add, this is in the to-dos component at title. So this might help if we come across any issues and we are debugging it, so we can make sure that we can debug it and check where it got updated. So that will work for all the CRUD operations. Yes, so I think up to this, this is all I think we are planned to demo it today. So these are some of the features we demoed today, but there are a whole lot of features specific to Angular, and also this will support to React and other frameworks as well. So you can always go to this documentation and check. Yes, it has all the details. So yeah, I think we have come to the end of the session. The next thing, if I go, these are the references we'll be sharing these slides with you, so you can refer the Akita documentation and the Git. This is the community where you can actively engage and get help from these Akita people. And then the front-end repo, which I demoed you today, and the API repo also, which I used to demo for this ng HTTP entity service. Yes, with that, I think the next thing is Q&A section.
Cool. Thank you very much, Dishan and Rishi, for the amazing session. It was really knowledgeable and very content-packed, and the demo was superb. So we got a few questions since we asked them mostly when they are in the session. So the first question, I think, do we have a GitHub repo for this demo project? I think there was a link for that one. So
Yeah.
in the slides, so we will be sharing the slides, and you will be able to get the both front-end and back-end code. Cool. And there's another question from Amila. So he asked at the time, so can we put Akita as a middleman when needed to update component state from the server data?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
Rishi demoed that using the to-do service.
Yeah, the last part, I think actually demoed that one also.
I think this one, the ng HTTP service, which I demoed you. So I am only calling those methods in the to-dos component. If you can see here, I'm just calling this, and what I am doing is I am just configuring the API. That's all I will do. So you need to make sure that you write the API according to the RESTful naming conventions. That's one condition, otherwise it won't work. Yeah.
And there's another question. Is there any timeout for stored values in the Akita store? From Amida.
Timeout as in when we store in the session or local storage or
Okay. Amir, can you elaborate the question?
yes. But
I think
when we
I
use
will be.
the store in Angular, I don't think there is a timeout for that. We can
Yeah.
use it as a normal ng redux or ngrx store. And the data will only be deleted if you reset the store. Or,
Store.
yeah,
Actually, you
it
can
will.
destroy the store as well. So that
Yes.
will also make sure that the data will be like get deleted from both the session or local storage and from the app store as well. Yeah.
Yes. You can usually do that when you're logging out from the application.
Hmm.
Be clear. I'm clear that.
Is there anything to add, Amir, to the question? I think it's fine, right?
So basically, the store. I mean, Akita is actually. It's like where these things are stored. I mean, like in memory, isn't it? No,
Yes, they are stored
Yeah.
in memory as a single object.
single
So,
object.
yes.
So what kind of data? I mean, we saw that we can store. I mean, text or data, some simple data here. But can we store like binary data or something big, somewhat of like that?
Yes, you can store almost anything that you can
Yeah.
usually store in your JavaScript variables.
Yes. Uh, Actually, this is
Okay.
built on top of RxJS. So yeah, can store anything. Yeah, can store in this
Thank
stuff.
you.
Yeah.
So I mean, good practice. I mean, I saw this is first time I saw this kind of thing here. So
Yeah.
basically, we are when we need to I mean, let's say update component state by always we are talking directly with the REST APIs. So now we can use for all application go through the Akita and updating the component state and communicate to the service.
Yeah.
Is it good practice now?
Yes.
Yes,
If you are
that is actually recommended. Yes, go ahead, Rishi.
Yeah, no, if your API is written according to the RESTful naming convention, yeah, you can use it that way. So that's somewhat recommended. And also for this session storage and all, you can straight away like handle it through this store without handling it separately. Yeah.
And even if you don't have a API with RESTful naming conventions, you can always do both in the service where you subscribe to the HTTP service and then you get that output and do the store update within the same method. So it will be easier for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks. I could understand. Understood.
Ah,
So we also got another question from Prabodh. Can you manage multiple stores and share the stores with multiple components?
yes.
Yes.
So like I mentioned, when you are creating a store, you can create multiple stores for maybe you have several features in your application. So like Rishi mentioned, you have
Yeah.
a authentication store and a to-do store. So that's two stores within the same Akita instance.
So these two. Yeah.
So is there any other questions you'd like to ask related to this session or anything related to state management or Angular? There's another question from Kavinder, something similar to what Prabhupada asked. When using ng entity store, can we connect to multiple backends?
Actually, you can configure it from the service level as well. So where you can configure different APIs. So that's I think you can refer it in the documentation. I also didn't refer it that much. So there is an option. Yeah.
And there's a question from Sasna. Is there any ways for maintaining the initial state?
Yes, Shazna. So when you are creating the initial state, you can pass your default values. And when you reset the store, you can always get back to your initial stage. Otherwise, you'll have to, if you want to reset some of the properties, I think you'll have to do that manually using updates.
Yes.
Yeah, Amir, we will be uploading to the recording to the YouTube channel, so there will be complete recording.
So I just sent a link to chat for Kavinder's question. You can refer the entity service documentation. There's a code to have multiple APIs where you can configure the API in the service level.
Yeah, I actually went before this session also. I went through the Akita documentation, and it's very well crafted and it gives so much examples. And I think if somebody wants to start with Akita, and it has a good starting point in there.
From the learning
Yes.
curve side, also I think it's simple, right? You don't have to get to know a lot of concepts. Just basically the database SQL query thing. So if you know that, yeah, Dishan, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, what I was going to tell is since Akita is used in production in the developers company, so that is Datorama, I think.
Yeah,
So
that's wrong.
they are using Akita in their production services as well. So
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about the continuity or issues or anything. Actually, they have a zero bugs policy where if you raise a bug, they try to fix it as soon as possible, or else you can even submit a pull request to them and they will review and approve it. So their community is very helpful. Even I have
Yeah.
talked with them a few times and got my
Yes.
questions clarified. You
So
can contact them via Git or GitHub.
yeah. So also there are a lot of articles related to this by the author Nathaniel. So you can refer those articles as well. So from the starting, he's like explaining how we get to this Akita. You can refer those articles in the Medium as well. Yeah.
Is there any missing questions, Fubudu, any questions that we missed? Okay, there's another question from Kavinder. Thank you very much, Ishan. I looked into that from your experience. How's the performance and the other concerns in Akita in comparison with other state managers like Redux, NGRX, NGXS, etc.?
I think performance-wise, it shouldn't make any difference
Yeah.
regarding when comparing with other stores. But like I said in the earlier, so there might be differences in the code verbosity and how you implement things. So some things will be easier in Akita and other things will be easier in some other stores. So what you have to do is when you are trying to implement a state management solution in your application, first get your requirements and see the store that fits the match. I think there were some articles that compared the performance between the stores. Yeah, in Medium.
Since it's actually using a single JavaScript update, I think it's kind of have its roots from the Redux. Even the
Yes.
dev tools also very resemblance to Redux. So if you are moving from Redux world, I think it's also really less painful, the transition.
So we actually have a story
Dishan,
about that.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
we were using Angular Redux in one of our Angular applications, but since the developers deprecated that repository, now we have Akita and Angular Redux running side by side in one of our Angular applications. So we are lazy loading Akita into some of our feature modules, and in our application level, we still have Angular Redux. So we are planning to do the migration step by step, but you can even do things like that in state
Yes.
management.
So like
Yeah,
if the
that's cool.
feature is more complex and you prefer that you need to have a separate state for that feature module, so it's better like you can do that with Akita, where you can have Akita for that feature, and also you can make sure that providing these providers in component level of the root component level of the feature, so it get like created and destroyed when the feature is not there. So that way you can use it, right, Dishan? That's how we
Yes.
are using.
Yes. So Akita is only loaded when we are using that feature, when we are lazy load and inject at the component level.
One last thing, guys. I can't find the GitHub repo for the demo project. Can you share the link in this chat? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Rishi, maybe we can share the PDF for the slides in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, we will be sharing all the PDF and all the links in the Meetup group also. So
Okay.
in the meantime, we will share it in here. So Prabhuda, you can start it here.
I can't see this message icon.
Okay, I have it
Maybe
here.
minimize or
Okay.
something.
Yeah, maybe. Since I'm sharing the screen, I can't see it.
You can go to the below the Zoom account and you can use, I think they have chat or something.
Before I shared the screen, yes, chat is there. Okay, good.
Sharing all the links in the video
No, I
description.
think it is, yeah.
We can't share the PDF, right? Just the link.
Yes.
Yeah,
We can
so
share.
it doesn't support the file uploading.
Yeah, I will just get this.
There's a link.
I sent the link for the front end application.
Okay, and for the API also, I will be sending that. Okay, so these are the two things, yeah. And also maybe I will send this link as well. So, yeah.
Okay, is there any other questions remaining from your side to ask? Yeah, let's wait. Okay. Here we got the Cheetah link also.
Yeah.
Okay. Seems it's going to be the end of the Q&A session. Okay, cool. So there's one last thing to do now. So I want to thank, let's start from the beginning. I want to thank Rajika. Rajika is the one who actually set this session up, and he's the one who got Dishan and Rishi to the session. And thank you very much, Rajika, on that and working on getting the speakers to the meetup. It's kind of a hard thing for me these days. And I want to thank Rishi and Dishan for putting your time and making this content and doing all the demos and putting it in the GitHub. And thank you very much for it. It's really knowledgeable, and I think everybody in the session will be agreed on it. Then I want to thank Ben from Auth0. He's the one who actually giving the Auth0 account to do this session for this our meetups since this pandemic hit up. So his machine is still online. I think he's very asleep. He's from he's in the Australian time zone. And I want to thank Pubudu and his team on working on this all the marketing things and getting the Leafy code designers. I think this time it was designed by Pubudu, so I want to thank him himself this time. So That's it. I think. Did I miss anything, Prabhu? Anybody or anything?
I think you get everyone, right?
I didn't get you.
I think you got everyone. You hit everyone.
All right. Every participants who participate in the meetup and ask questions and make this possible. I want to thank all of you. And till next session, have a nice day and nice time. Be safe. Even if you can stay indoor and use all the safety guidelines given by the health ministry or something. And till next time, and till we see if we stay indoors and make these things go off, we can have an offline meetup also. Till then, this meeting online, and have a nice time.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, guys, thank you for attending, and thank you for CMBJS for giving us a platform to host this thing. Yeah, thank you. Present it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. We will be uploading the recording to the YouTube, and we'll be sharing the video link and all the session links in the meetup group also. Okay. See you the next time.
See you guys.